All right, good evening, everyone. I would like to call the regular meeting of Kimberley City Council for May 27th to order, held here in the place called Cucamonum, which is the homelands of the Ktunaxa peoples. We have any late items, Maurice?
There is one late item that was added this afternoon to the agenda, and it's correspondence relating to the small-scale multi-unit housing zoning amendments.
Right, you received this? Yeah, so how about we receive that as correspondence right now? Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McGuire, thank you. And Councillor Karen seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Could I have a mover to adopt the agenda of the regular meeting of May the 27th? Councillor Cairns moves and Councillor McGuire seconds. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Next up, we have adoption of the minutes of the special meeting of council held on May 13th. Councillor Roberts moves and Councillor McGuire seconds. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on May the 13th. Councillor McGuire moves and Councillor Karen seconds. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We're there. The formalities are out of the way. Just make a point. In case you hadn't noticed, Councillor McBain is not in his usual chair tonight. He is attending, pardon me, he is attending via teleconference link from Nelson, from downtown Nelson. It doesn't matter, from Nelson. Okay, first up tonight, we have the report on drive-through and gas station engagement from staff, and the motion on the floor is that council receive the May 27th report from Planning Services. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McGuire moves and Councillor Karen seconds. Discussion. Troy, did you want to say a very extensive report? Want to maybe give us the Coles Notes version?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there's a lot to this report, a lot of information there. One of the longest ever, I think, that we've had, but that's based on the tremendous amount of feedback that we've received on this issue. So yeah, just in terms of a bit of background and context, this is building on the direction from council to undertake community engagement back at the January 22nd meeting, and the further update at the February 26th meeting as a way of just an update on the engagement strategy for this project, which of course was to make sure put out a community survey available online through the Engage Kimberley site, and with paper version copies available as well. And we also referred the issue to the Interior Healthy Communities Program for comment, and also met with the Accessibility Advisory Committee and got their feedback on or their comments and input on the matter. So this report is a thorough summary and analysis of the feedback received from those three main methods for seeking input here. Just quickly on the survey summary, we were very happy with the response rate. Survey was posted or available February 29th to the end of March, and we received almost 700 submissions, which was exceptional. By far, the majority of those were online submissions, but also 25 paper submissions that were transcribed by staff and included in the overall report summary there. So just based on population-wise, it's about 8% of the city's population participated in the survey. Unless there's questions, I'm not going to go through in detail. I think you've all had a chance to go through that report. This report does, like I said, summarizes the feedback that received through those three methods and provides some analysis in the context of the official community plan, policy, and objectives. Also outlines the potential response options and makes a recommendation there for council's consideration. And I just want to acknowledge and give thanks to a number of staff that have done exceptional work on this, pull all this information together. It was a lot to go through, so of course Ariane has done the bulk of the work, but also our other planner Sarah, Pam and Jasmine, Vicky, a host of others I think were involved at various stages in this as well. So I'll leave it at that in terms of a summary, unless there's questions on any aspects of that.
Yeah, thanks, Troy. It was indeed comprehensive, and we really appreciate the time and efforts that put into making that happen. Okay, council, questions about the report, or we can, well, I'll tell you what, let's do a roundtable on this one for comments and or questions. Feel obliged to pass if you don't have any. It's not a requirement that you weigh in, but I want to make sure everybody's got a question or two. Woody, you want to start us off?
So are we just discussing the report at this point?
Yep. Either questions about the report or comments about the report.
Yeah, I found the report comprehensive. I think it's helpful to see the feedback from various people and parties. Yeah, I have more comments on the motions that are coming after this than on this specific motion. I fully support receiving this report as is, and don't really find too many questions. I feel like everything was well laid out within the report, and I appreciated the graphs.
All right, awesome, thanks. Councillor Cairns.
Thank you for the report. And I guess what I'd like to do, I want to actually take a little bit of time and reflect on the direction that's come in through the report. So I'd ask for you to bear with me while I take a few minutes to just reflect on this, and if you'd rather go through and just kind of pick up on questions on the report first, that's fine. Or
no, I guess one of the things that we'll get to after kind of we've done a quick question, are there any questions or comments, is just to talk about exactly that. This is a really, really comprehensive report. There's a lot in there. And, the expectation that we take a day or two to kind of go through and formulate, the question or comments might be a bit much. One of the options on here, pardon me, is to defer to another meeting, which we can discuss after we've received the report. Sandra.
so I'm in favor of receiving the report.
Yeah.
Look forward to more discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in favor of the receipt of the report. I can see that it's extremely comprehensive. As I did go through it, though, I realized that a couple of the questions, when I filled out the report initially, they felt clear to me through my interpretation. But as I read these things now, I realize that there's a couple of questions the answers could have been taken either way. It felt a little bit of a yin and yang about it. I was also quite concerned is not the exact word, but quite aware of the fact that there's a lot of diverse opinions. It's not just all one opinion or the other. It is very broad across the spectrum. And I think in terms of saying everybody over here is right or everybody over there is right, we really need to take a deep dive into what this is trying to tell us and what that means for future councils as we go forward. So I'm in favor of seeing the report discussed more fully and the outcomes and possibilities.
Okay, awesome, thanks. Jason.
Yeah, everybody hear me okay?
You bet.
I think first, I definitely support receiving the report. And I think my comment would just be really general, and I think it it kind of aligns a little bit with some of the results we got in the report of kind of walking the line a little bit. I've always had a real problem with outright banning or prohibiting anything. That's just kind of the way I'm wired. I feel like there's always, there could be potential benefit and things. So, but I do lean towards, strictly regulating or getting as close to possible, especially on the gas station part. But, so anyway, I thought the report, I would echo everybody else's statements. I mean, certainly comprehensive, lots of good material in there and lots of good data too, for us to, guide us towards a decision. So yeah, kudos to staff on a job well done.
Thank you, Councillor McBain. Councillor Dunneback.
Yeah, I support the receiving of this report. The one thing that I was a little curious about, and there's a little bit of talk about it, but what we look at as like multiple charging stations as because essentially it's a refueling station, just not gasoline, and the effects and concerns and the time use of that land compared to a drive-through gas station, if we were to get something more of that nature. But I think it's something that's going to be coming at us. You go into Cranbrook and you see there's, I'm going to say the number 10 Tesla chargers out in front of Tim Hortons there, and how long those vehicles stay there and kind of impacts then fire concerns and safety as well. This with, but other than that, it's great to see the graphs and the breakdown. I appreciate it. That's all I have to say about it.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I guess, one of the, we've had a year since the zoning for the Anna Creek development was denied, and lots of water under the bridge over that period of time, and lots of opportunity to think about it. With respect to this particular policy or recommendations that have come forward in the conversation we need to have, I personally would really like us as a council to get to a consensus position as opposed to one that is a point counterpoint, which is really where the conversation had gone previously. I think it's important for us to keep this at the policy level. We still, I think, have a little bit of work to do in the conversations that we have on what we're trying to achieve and what the best way to achieve it is. Like Councillor McBain, bans, basically imply you're not exactly clear what to do under circumstances. So let's just ban it because it makes it easier. I personally have never been in favor of outright bans of any kind. I think we need to consider the fact that something like a ban does encumber future councils. It's a view into the future that our crystal balls aren't clear enough, and they can end up having a lot of unintended consequences, I guess. I think the other point that I'd like to make is that council already has the power to decline applications on virtually anything. It's not a use case inside the zoning, as Anna Creek was not last time. It comes to council and we get to weigh in on whether it goes forward or it doesn't go forward. We don't need to have a ban or policies banning things in order for us to have control over what it is we do. And we have that control. I guess there's also a few other things that I would have liked to have seen in the report that I'm not sure, we're given, a lot of consideration. The first is that there was very little mention at all about what is our single economic driver here in Kimberley, and that's tourism. And based on where we're at, our tourism is rubber traffic. We need to increase tourism. We need to have more cars that are coming to Kimberley. That's just the reality that we deal with. And there really wasn't any conversation or consideration in the report about what the implications of that are, to be looking at minimizing on one hand from a residential point of view, and then wanting to increase that traffic from an overall visitor point of view. I'm not drawing any conclusions on that or making any statements other than that's a consideration that that we really need to think about. And the other one that was not mentioned in here at all either is, and we're a little bit unique, and that's consideration of our proximity to Cranbrook. It complicates things, pardon me, for us in many, many ways. And when we take a look at things like environmental implications, those round trips to Cranbrook have significant impact. The other thing that they have significant impact on are disposable income being spent in the community. There was a fair amount of consideration given to the business community and kind of how we want to maximize opportunities. And we're in a position where both with either accommodation or with other services where we're in fact driving people to Cranbrook, and when people either stay or go to Cranbrook for whatever, money gets spent there. And we really need to look at ways and make sure that it's not an unintended consequence of, trying to do the right thing. So I guess my point is that I see a lot of conversation that we still need to have at the outset. I said, I really would like us as a council to be a consensus on this. And to do that, I'd really like to see us set another meeting here in the immediate future to be able to have that conversation. At the end of the day, though, the report's got a lot of awesome information in it. We need to receive the report, and it sounds like we have unanimous consent to do that. So I'll call the question. All those in favor of receipt? Any opposed? Awesome. That motion is carried. So, so we have a couple of other suggestions here in terms of a couple of other motions. Go ahead, Woody.
Yeah, I'll move that the council direct staff. The staff recommendations, I'll move this for staff recommendation. Get that on the floor, and then maybe we can deal with them separately.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Dunneback seconds. Okay, discussion. Go ahead.
Yeah, so on this one, I appreciated this report, and it did leave me with some questions just around what policy looks like to prohibit future drive-throughs, because my understanding would be that it would just be providing clarity within our existing zones that these uses aren't permitted, which they technically aren't listed as permitted at this point. So it's a little bit of a gray area, which leaves it up to interpretation for developers and could be misguided or misleading developers. So is this what is being proposed, Troy, is to clean that language up to make it clear?
What's recommended is that that we be directed to draft policy and zoning regulations that towards the objective of prohibiting new drive-through services, new gas station services.
But, so I'm not a planner. I just don't know what that looks like. I guess that's my issue.
So, I mean, I guess we don't know exactly what that looks like either. We haven't fully explored what those are, other than the main kind of policy options, which is, prohibit those new services, or allow and establish rules and clarify rules for those. So there's a whole number of ways that can go, and it can be very prohibitive or less prohibitive. It could be very wide open and allow all kinds of things anywhere, anytime, or it can be somewhat restrictive but still allow for those uses, right? So there's a whole range of things, and where we're at today is, presently is asking council to provide some clarity for staff, to give some direction on which sort of policy, basic policy options, I guess, is the preference. And then we can and will report back with what we would recommend for regulations, with whatever that in line with that direction.
Thanks.
So to be clear, the motion on the floor indicates that the direction is to come up with a policy to prohibit. Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Cairns.
A motion to prohibit. Okay, so I think these are really important, really good points that have been made so far, and it's something that I've been struggling a lot with. My preference also is not I don't like the language prohibit ban. I prefer a different approach to wording. But I also do note at the same time that I know of at least 27 other municipalities that don't allow for drive-throughs, and am aware that, you know, an amendment can be made to that if a specific need arises. So, you know, I wonder how the wording can work so it's not specifically like a ban, but it works more with understanding that, you know, that amendments can be made, which they can, even if there is a prohibition. In terms of, and I would support exploring this, having staff prepare that policy so that we can take a look at that. I think this is a really important decision because it really signals our direction as a community, that we're awake to the shift that's underway. We're willing to consider needs for land, for specific priorities that we have for economic development, and that we do want to diversify beyond the service sector and diversify our tax base and have living wage jobs. So I do think it's worth taking the time. I recognize a lot of time has already been spent on this. So, and we have a lot of good information in front of us on it. So I would support going that route of developing the policy, which explores the concept of not allowing.
Go ahead, Sandra.
I appreciate your point of view.
Hang on a second.
Oh, sorry, Jordan.
Sorry, Councillor McBain. We won't let Councillor Roberts jump the queue. Go ahead.
Sorry, Sandra. I'll try to be quick. I think a key word that you could that you could change, kind of going to what you were discussing there, Sue, would be instead of saying prohibit, just say regulate, because regulate can mean pretty much anything. Like it's a pretty wide scope, but what it does say is that you know, it basically implies review. It can become more implicit that this is going to be reviewed more thoroughly. Like what Don was saying, things that come through to us, proposals that come through us, we look at anyways, but maybe that word would just kind of help clarify for staff, like, you know, prohibition can be part of the decision process, but it doesn't have to be the defining part of the process. So just a suggestion. Oops.
Go ahead, Sandra.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm kind of a somewhat different point of view. I feel like we've taken a wastebasket full of notes and thrown it at them and said, here, make a bylaw out of all of these thoughts and ideas that we're having. And when we as a group have not decided what it is we think we are trying to accomplish here. And that's why I think we need to kind of have a deeper discussion and talk about it. And I agree that we need to get closer to consensus as to what we want these bylaws to look like. First of all, I know that we all have our point of view, and it's healthy for us to come to consensus. I am on my consensus bandwagon, generally speaking, that we need to learn how to do that a lot more well than we've been doing, just as a general population, not just this group. But it's the whole consensus building piece of it allows us to move forward knowing that we are addressing the needs of all of the people that are talking to us about this, all of the people that are paying the taxes. And for us to be able to say to staff, okay, this is the general direction we want you to take because we feel as though this will work as a group. And then give staff the time to do it at that point instead of having to guess at what we want and what we hope to achieve. Because God knows it's springtime. They've got lots of other things that they could be putting their planning time towards than kind of wordsmithing things to see if we like it. I just feel as though we have a little bit more work to do on the whole subject in a forum like maybe a COM meeting or something where the forum is we get to all say what we think and then maybe even put it on a board and say, okay, what can we live with? How can we do this? What should it look like? I'd be in favor of that.
Thanks, Councillor Roberts. Anything further, Councillor McBain? Nope. Kevin? Yeah, go ahead.
I just think the word prohibit is a pretty strong word, and I don't think you can say economic growth and prohibit in the same sentence. And looking to the future, wanting to have more things go on here as long as it is regulated and we talk about it and completely understand it. It really makes sense to growing in the direction that we would like to see, and ultimately having a bit of control over how it all plays out. This is my 2 bits.
All right, thanks. Thanks for that, Kevin. I guess I've already made my comments surrounding bans, council already having the power and some of the additional information. Interestingly, as a group, we really haven't sat down and had a robust conversation about this or the bigger picture as of yet. And it's a big piece, and I think we need to do that. I also think that there are property owners in town, whether it's commercial, industrial, or residential, that have invested money in the community, and they deserve an opportunity to come forward to us and make the case for what they want to do and why they want to do it and why they think it's in the best interest of the community. And for us to arbitrarily preclude them from doing that just makes no sense to me whatsoever. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Okay, so the motion on the floor has to do with directing staff to come up with policies that prohibit. I would suggest, based on the conversation that we've had, that rather than trying to wordsmith that into an amendment, that we take the option that was suggested in here, one of the options, and that is to defer this until after we've had an opportunity to sit down and have a much more robust conversation at a committee of the whole meeting. Regular meetings aren't the places to have these conversations because these are decision-making meetings, not, kind of let's get to consensus. Well, we have to defeat the one that's on the floor first, and then we'll go back to the other motion. So inside of the other one.
Yes, but then you need a seconder, and then there is no discussion on whether or not this is deferred.
Defer.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Dunneback moves. Do we have a seconder?
What was the motion? Sorry.
To defer,
Okay.
following a more robust conversation. that we'll
No, I
see.
got that. I couldn't hear the conversation between you and Maurice. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep, all good.
Okay, seconded by Councillor McBain. The motion is to defer.
It's just a sec. This Councillor McBain seconding.
You did.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll call the question then. All those in favor?
Yes, just the.
Okay.
My question is just, I know there's, that this is time sensitive and there's quite a bit of travel coming up in the next little while. And I'm just wondering what date we'd be looking
Yes, we'll
at.
set the.
Right. I just want to make sure that I can actually attend. So,
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
We'll get it where everybody has that option.
Okay. All righty. Thanks.
Did you have something? Go ahead.
I just, if I may, I just wanted to try to help clarify, just based on the kind of collection of comments from council. And I didn't get a chance to kind of just even summarize the options. And again, if the deferring decision on this decision on directing staff to prepare to do any further work on this, that is definitely one of the options that's laid out in the staff report there. And we do recommend trying to specify a meeting date. If that needs to be, if that itself needs some more time, I guess, to clarify that everybody can be available, and that makes sense as well. But I guess in our view, it wouldn't be effective for that if that's a committee of the whole meeting to have a kind of a workshop with council to try to work out the regulation. We've laid out, what we think are the 4 basic options here. One is the recommended that we set some policy and regulation to prohibit these uses. And as an earlier question there, that can be a strong prohibit or a weaker prohibit, again, based on council's direction, and that'd be good discussion to have at a separate meeting. But the other options are on the other side of the spectrum, if you will, establish regulations to allow these new drive-throughs or new gas station services. And we even provided some explanation about like what that might look like. Again, those can be strong regulations or softer, weaker regulations, I guess. Then there's the hybrids of either, establishing regulations for new drive-throughs but prohibiting the gas stations, or vice versa, prohibiting new drive-throughs but establishing new gas stations. So we have laid out the options there in 2, 3, 4, 5. We are recommending option 5. And option 1 of the report is to defer decision, and that's where we're trying to get council to give that direction to staff about which option is your preference. And we fully support the idea to try to work towards a consensus. And if that requires a separate discussion, then that's what we hope. But I don't think it would be effective use of anyone's time to sort of workshop that regulation in that meeting. I think what we need here is set that high level policy direction for us, and then we will go back and get to work and lay out some options, regulatory policy options for council to consider there, and whether those are, like I said, stronger, weaker, or in between, or hybrid. But again, based on the feedback received, the best practices used elsewhere, whatever else, we'll as we always do, provide our best professional advice on what that regulation should be. But we're asking council to set that high level direction.
Go ahead, Woody.
Yeah, so I'll be voting against the current motion, which is to defer, simply because there is, according to Robert's rules.
Sure, there's not. I can go get my binder.
Welcome to. But I'm pretty sure I checked this morning, but I could be wrong for sure. I'm not an expert, but yeah, I think that there is merit in trying out one of these to regulate ones. When I heard around the table, it seemed like there was quite a bit of support for regulation and for directing staff to come up with some more meat for us to actually know what we're looking at. And this is just a direction to staff. This doesn't mean that we're actually approving any of these regulations. So staff can come to us with something that has a little bit more meat so that we can actually see what we're looking at, which will be more helpful, because I feel a little bit blind going into this conversation at this point because I'm not really clear on what the regulation would look like. So I would support one of these other motions that have been put forward.
Thanks for that, Woody. I guess that's the kind of, from my point of view, that's the purpose of us getting together as a council and going through it and trying to make sure that we understand completely what it is we're trying to accomplish, so that we can then take that next step and say, okay, here's the direction to council. I think we haven't had that conversation as a council, and to send staff off to do that without having that conversation makes no sense to me. So
yeah, I think I'm just saying that then we would have more information to have that conversation, because we'd be giving staff the permission to present us with some real information.
okay, fair enough. Okay, last comment. Go ahead, Sue.
I think Woody makes a good point, is that, we're kind of floating around up here, not, a bit abstracted, not really clear on exactly what it is that we're talking about. We can all mean, that's often the issue, is when things are left too open to interpretation, then we can go down one path, and I think it undermines our ability to reach consensus, because we are not sure of exactly what we're talking about. So I agree, it would be really helpful to have something to actually work through when we come together.
Yeah, so, we're the ones giving direction to staff, not the other way around. And all I'm saying is I don't think we're in a position to be clear on that yet. In any event, I would call the question. This question is on deferral. All those in favor of deferral? Those opposed? Councillor Cairns and Councillor McGuire is opposed, so that motion is carried. We need a date, kind of an expedient date. Is everybody in favor of a special meeting to do this? That way we don't have to restrict ourselves to a Monday. especially when we've got regular meetings to kind of have to put in there. Okay, because that'll give us a lot more flexibility for getting it done later. Okay, you okay if Maurice kind of sets that date expediently, and we'll maybe put out 2 or 3 options for everybody, and then we'll have to pick what the common option is. We'll doodle. Yeah, we'll do a doodle poll. Okay, can we trust you with doing that? Okay, excellent. Good conversation, folks. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have the small scale multi-unit housing zoning amendments. This isn't even a good acronym, Troy. What are we calling it internally? Yeah, okay. So the motion on the floor is that council amend. The first motion is the council amend bylaw 2764 as recommended in the staff report from planning. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Cairns moves. Councillor, is that your hand up, Councillor McBain?
I was moving the screen, but yes, I'll put my hand up for that.
Councillor McBain seconds that motion. Okay, can you just summarize what those changes are, Troy, please?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so at the last meeting, council approved first reading of this bylaw, and which was actually helpful because it did give us time to double check on a couple things, and we found that there was a particular this was actually just kind of came up with some other inquiries on some projects, and we realized that it would be good to amend section 409(3)B, which is a part of the general regulations, and it's a specifically called an additional setback requirement that applies to enclosed or partially enclosed parking spaces, and sets an extra, like a larger front setback from parcel line to the building. And so what's proposed with this amended version is a modification of that so that it applies to, and I'm just gonna I gotta flip ahead here to the language that's used there. Second, I'm sorry here for the pause. I've lost it in, where did I go? I'm sorry. So anyway, the additional setback requirement is a 5-meter requirement that applies in any case. And what we're recommending is that it will only apply on multi-unit dwellings, and when there's only when there is a lane option. So so that way it's not overly restricted. If they have no option to provide access to that parking from a lane, then the additional setback is not going to apply. So that's the key change there. There was another proposed change here to schedules H and I, and this is to reflect, there was a recent zoning amendment at 725 300th Street where the parcel was recently rezoned from R4 to R2, and we had not yet included that in the main map update, so it didn't get properly transferred into those proper schedules. So that's a correction to that there, so that R2 zone parcel will become an RS zone parcel as with all the other R2 zone parcels. So in the grand scheme of things, I think those are quite minor changes there. So we're recommending second reading to that bylaw as amended, and then I can speak to the other recommendations later if you like.
Awesome, thanks, Troy. Councillor Roberts, go ahead.
Are you sleeping at night?
Occasionally.
This is, I'm just being facetious. There's so many complexities inside of this. I just wondered whether there was much curiosity about it, many inquiries about it after our last meeting.
No, actually not too many. We received the one late item to the agenda tonight was a piece of correspondence from one particular individual. And provide some clarification, and I think they're fine with the changes overall. That actually, well, I guess it was applicable to both bylaws under consideration here. We've had, in a more general sense, we've had multiple conversations with property owners and builders and designers about these changes. We talked before about the small scale gentle density project that we did and had the workshops up at the conference center. I think there's widespread awareness about these changes coming because of the provincial mandate to make these changes. And, you know, it seems like a lot, but you know, and maybe what I haven't done a good job of communicating is relative to the changes that council made in 2022 under the bylaw 2722, the housing affordability and availability amendments. These are actually easier amendments because really what we're doing is we're just taking those changes that council adopted 2 years ago and applying it, you know, basically equally throughout the community where, you know, where there's zones that were previously restricted to 1 or 2. So now, like as we said, we pointed out, there's a couple of hybrids of that where, you know, the mobile home permission in one zone and the tourist accommodation in a couple others. So again, it's quite simple, oddly enough. And you know, on the other hand, it even applies to much fewer parcels than those changes did at the time. So the R2 zone at the time was, you know, some 75%. I think I change that percentage every time, but the point is it's the majority of the residential parcels. And even though there's more zones involved this time, it's fewer parcels. And the end result is there's a new standard based zoning, which is basically this, you know, the same. So that's, you know, any combination of 1 to 6 units. Doesn't mean you have to do small scale multi-unit housing on any of those parcels, but it gives you the option for any, you know, any current owner, future owner, opens up, you know, countless opportunities for more housing. And that might just be as simple as adding suites or adding you know, a backyard laneway house or something. Or, you know, maybe building that accessory building in the back to live in, and then we renovate the main building into 3 or 4 more units or something, right? So it's, you know, there's lots of options that will come out of this, and we're recommending that council move forward with both bylaws here. Just the one is being amended here or proposed for amendment. We do need to have the bylaws adopted by the end of June, and we do still need to wait. Well, we have submitted for Ministry of Transportation review, but we're still waiting on that feedback from them. So we want to make sure we allow some time there in between third and adoption for them to help us get that across the finish line there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Cairns, go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks, Troy, for your work on this, and I really appreciate what you're saying about the that applying consistency across all of the service parcels, and also that, you know, it's a bit of a terminology cleanup to align with the provincial policy manual, as you know, as that's becoming available to us. And I have to say, I've been I feel really fortunate that in Kimberley we've been figuring this out locally and getting, you know, and are ahead of the curve. I've been talking with councillors who are in municipalities where they're not, and now their hand is being forced. And it's, you know, it's really, they're too late to tailor their approach to their community needs. So kudos, you know, great, thanks for putting us out there and being able to tailor make this so much better, to be ahead and working on an approach that suits our specific needs. And yeah, just, you know, just that I appreciate all of this, all of what this provides, that it's, we don't want to create enclaves of perceived protections, you know, neighborhoods haves and have nots. We need to have that consistency across the board. It improves affordability for existing owners, for renters, by providing that option for resident driven development homes. And yeah, there's just so many good things about it, and I'm fully in support in moving forward on both the second and third.
Okay, thank you. Further, call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up is a motion that council receive that give, pardon me, second reading to the to 2764. Please. Thanks, Councillor McGuire. Councillor Roberts seconds. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up is that council give third reading to bylaw 2764. Please. Councillor Cairns moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. Thank you. Any opposed? Councillor McGuire is opposed.
Simply because I'd like to slow it down a little bit, but
Okay, Councillor McGuire is opposed. We are not doing adoption tonight. Right, yeah. Next, two motions are with respect to bylaw 2765, which is the Alpine Resort zoning. The first is that council give second reading to the bylaw. Councillor McGuire moves and Councillor Cairns seconds. Any opposed? Motion is carried. And finally, the council give third reading to bylaw 2765. Councillor Cairns moves. Councillor Roberts seconds. Any opposed? Councillor McGuire is opposed. Thanks for that, Woody. Okay. That's it for the small scale multi-unit housing zoning amendments. We have one more tranche to go. When will that be coming back, Troy? Next regular meeting?
Possibly next meeting, we do have to, like I said, make sure that Ministry of Transportation, but yeah, I think there's a few options, I guess, in June. The two regular meetings, I think there's a special in there somewhere too.
Right,
But,
okay.
but yeah, definitely, if not the first regular meeting, well, I sure hope the second regular meeting.
Okay, next up, we have the proposed road closure bylaw. At the property adjacent to 259 Knight Road, which is next door to the food bank. And the motion on the floor is the council adopt highway closure and dedication bylaw 2760. Councillor Roberts moves. Councillor McGuire seconds. Any further discussion on this one? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. I was over at the food bank last week and got an updated tour, including of the yard and a discussion on kind of all the possibilities for how they're going to use that. Boy, I'll tell you, things have come a long way since they were in the basement of the Anglican Church. You know, that's quite a going concern that's going on over there. Okay, next up we have our check run in the amount of $544,084 to be approved as paid. Mover, please. Councillor Roberts moves. Councillor Cairns seconds. Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. So just to be clear for the public, if not council, when the motion comes to the floor, these checks have already been paid. They have been scrutinized. They've been double checked. Councillor Roberts is the councillor that goes through and does the third level of checking, and they are paid. And so council's motion is to approve as paid. If anybody actually listens to the to the motion, so this may go through quickly. We have some very large sums of money that are going through here, sometimes in the millions of dollars, and I just want to make it clear that we get, despite how quickly it goes through council, this gets significant scrutiny before it goes out the door. Okay, we have two significant items of in camera tonight. I'd like a motion to move inside. Councillor McGuire, thank you. And Councillor McBain seconds. All those in favor? Motion is carried. We shall take 2 minutes and head into in camera.
I must have missed it. So that everybody didn't have to lose.
So
Maurice, am I gonna have to change meetings?